Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We shall enter into the 10th canto, chapter 12, in which there's the picnic pastime and then the slaying of Aghasura. Let's see how far we get, but certainly we'll cover the picnic. Because Krishna wants to have fun with the boys. Nighttime is for the girls, but daytime is for the boys. We'll start going over text 1. Sri Shuka Uvacha Kvachit Vanashaya Mano Dadadvrajat Pratat Samutaya Vyasya Vatsapan Prabodhayan Chinga Ravena Charuna Vinirgato Vatsa Parasaro Hari. Shukadeva Goswami continued. O king, one day Krishna decided to take his breakfast as a picnic in the forest. He blew his bugle made of horn and woke all the cowherd boys and calves with its beautiful sound. Then Krishna and the boys, keeping their respective groups of calves before them, proceeded from Brajabhumi to the forest. We'll read extracts from Srila Prabhupada's purports as we go deeper into the chapter. Om Agana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yen Tasmai Shri Gurave. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We hinted briefly yesterday morning about Krishna's desire to enjoy the picnic pastime. Some people find it strange that the Supreme Absolute Truth has a desire to enjoy. But we don't find it strange that we have a desire to enjoy. Actually, the only reason why, in case you're wondering, why you have a desire to enjoy, how many of you wondered about that? Raise your hands. Don't be shy. Why do I have a desire to enjoy? Very few, huh? Everyone takes it for granted. It's just what life is supposed to be. If you're a typical Kali Yuga denizen, then enjoyment means the most unbona fide things. If you're a rare pious enjoyer, then you think enjoyment means to do pious activities so that you have a better future, a better birth. In any case, we should be thinking, why do I have this desire to enjoy? It is part of the process of the Upanishads. And the purpose of the Upanishads is to bring us nearer to the Supreme Absolute Truth. Part of the process is to look at yourself as a tiny sample of the Supreme. Anor Aniyan Mahato Mahiyan. What is there in the part must be existing in the complete whole. So how can you deny the desire of the Supreme Absolute Truth to enjoy when you, the tiny speck, have it in you? If we take away your desire to enjoy, what will you do? First of all, it can't be done. But secondly, if somehow or other you think that you have no possibilities whatsoever for satisfaction, enjoyment, fulfillment, that just leaves suicide as the only option. Suicide means you see no possibilities in the slightest for any satisfaction or fulfillment. But you all are alive, you're all living, so you must have some kind of desire for fulfillment and satisfaction. So the question is, where does it come from? You know the first verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, echoing the Vedanta Sutra, Janmadi yasya yataha. The absolute truth is that from which everything emanates. Everything, guess what, means everything. So Krishna sports with the boys during the day, and then he has his confidential pastimes at night. Some people think, oh, this is mythological. But as I always point out, your desire to enjoy, you don't take that as mythological, right? That's the absolute truth. But we're so envious, we deny Krishna of his desire to enjoy, even though his enjoyment is perfect and unlimited. Because we're tiny specks of the Supreme, we have the same qualities, generally speaking. If you want to be more precise, as Nectar Devotion will explain to you, we have 78% of the qualities of Krishna. But generally you can say we have the qualities of Krishna in total. So, shouldn't we have no problem then with our enjoyment, since we're sharing a quality of Krishna, just like the drop of seawater shares the quality of the ocean? So we should be having no problem, right? But there are lots of problems. First of all, we have to work so hard for our enjoyment, right? In case you haven't noticed. Endure so many crises, limitations, misunderstandings, hopes, and then the hopes crash. Partial fulfillment, which just leaves us cranky and frustrated. So what's going on here? The speck, or we could say the spark of the fire, has the same quality of the fire, but there's a quantitative difference. That means that for us, the parts, although we have the enjoying capacity, it's not big enough to get the job done. A small spark of fire doesn't have the same burning capacity as a blaze. And in fact, when that small spark lands on wet grass or lands in the water, its burning quality becomes extinguished. But when the spark is dancing in the blaze, in the big fire, then its burning capacity functions properly. So Krishna is the unlimited fire. We are the tiny spark. We all share the enjoying capacity. But when we try to enjoy separately from Krishna, like the spark jumping out of the fire, what happens? Problems. So this is our number one delusion. We think we can be happy enjoying separately from Krishna, like the spark that jumps out of the blaze and lands on wet grass or even lands in water. Spiritual life, the development of bhakti, for those who have a material body in the material world, means let the spark at least be on dry grass so the fiery quality of the spark can be maintained. The more we come to grips with our enjoying propensity, why do I have it? What is it meant for? The more our spiritual life starts to become on solid ground. We can't deny our enjoying propensity. The problem is it's misdirected. You can't say the world is false. But what is false is the way we approach the world and what we want from it. That is the falsity. So the Vaishnava philosophers don't say the world is false. They say that our attitude of exploitation, lust, anger, greed, that is what is false. Knowing this, we can then hear peacefully and properly about Krishna Leela. Krishna had a strong desire to picnic in the forest. Haribol! A strong desire to picnic in the forest. This is God. The desire was so strong that he told his boys, his associates, the day before, prepare. So they all had their breakfast prepared from the day before so they could leave early in the morning. Usually, what do the cowherd boys and Krishna do? They usually take breakfast at home. But Krishna alerted them. I've got some enjoying plans for tomorrow that are unique. We're packing breakfast today, and tomorrow morning we'll take the breakfast out into the forest. The Acharyas say this is the first time Krishna desired to do this. So what happened the next morning? Krishna did something unusual. He awakened without his mother waking him. And he then did what is normal. He washed his face, he took off his night clothes, put on his day clothes, his ornaments, and then he blew his buffalo horn, Mandragosh. He blew the horn, and that alerted all the unlimited cowherd boys in Brajabhumi. Let's go. It's picnic time. Just see how Krishna's enjoyment begins so early in the morning. He's not going to work. He's blowing the buffalo horn to say, it's party time. It's pleasure time. First thing in the morning. So when Krishna blew his horn, two things happened simultaneously. Yes, all the cowherd boys were alerted. And secondly, they were just mesmerized by the beauty of the sound from that buffalo horn. Quickly, they all emerged from their houses. Just visualize, which you can't. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of cowherd boys coming out of their houses. All except who? Balaram. Balaram's mother, Rohini, said, you stay home today because you have to do particular rituals, astrological rituals that the Brahmanas recommend. Now, this was actually an arrangement of the Leela Shakti, Krishna's pastime potency, because the Brahma Vimohana Leela was coming up, the bewilderment of Lord Brahma, in which Lord Brahma thinks he's stolen the cowherd boys and their calves. The Leela Shakti, knowing Krishna's intent, his pastime energy, didn't want Balaram to feel separation from the cowherd boys as the cowherd boys were going through that future next day, later the same day, bewilderment of Lord Brahma. So Balaram didn't go. That's kind of astonishing because the two are always together, Krishna, Balaram. But this time, Krishna is going to the forest without Balaram. Was his main reason to deal with Lord Brahma, who would attempt to interfere with his pastimes? No. Was his main reason to kill Aghasura? No. Those were all incidental. This is how multifaceted is Krishna's enjoyment. Krishna's main purpose in going to the forest was simply to have a picnic. Everything else was supplementary. This may be a little hard for you to understand when you think about it, because your focus in thinking about this Leela most likely is the killing of Aghasura. But that was small stuff for Krishna. His focus is enjoying the picnic in the forest. Everything else that happens is just fine print. This is why the Acharyas say, this pastime can be understood only by those with devotion. Just notice how your mind will jump to what you think are the highlight events. Killing of Aghasura, and then Brahma is going to be amazed and steal the cowherd boys and their calves. No, that's all supplementary. As I said, the main focus, when your mind, your consciousness is directed by the Acharyas in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, your main focus is on Krishna's enjoyment, the picnic and the sporting in the forest with the cowherd boys. You may not have considered that as the main event before, but we're going to get into it today. What did the cowherd boys and Krishna do in the forest? So we talked about how Krishna prepared himself, how he dressed, the ornaments. Now visualize thousands upon thousands of cowherd boys leaving their homes. Quickly, they want to be with Krishna. Now, their mothers had decorated them very nicely, even with gold and pearls. But when the whole group entered the forest, they added on to their home decorations forest decorations. Forest minerals, leaves, berries, peacock feathers. Such a stunning sight. Can you see it? The question can be raised. How can Vrindavan accommodate thousands upon thousands of cowherd boys? Shukadeva Goswami describes, at that time, hundreds and thousands of cowherd boys came out of their respective homes in Brajabhumi and joined Krishna, keeping before them their hundreds and thousands of groups of calves. The boys were very beautiful, and they were equipped with lunch bags, bugles, flutes, and sticks for controlling the calves. They're coming out of their houses with great speed because why? They have such affection for Krishna. This is beyond the sadhana stage of bhakti. This is all on the platform of ragatmika, the spontaneous love, spontaneous attraction, 100% for Krishna. The Bhagavatam takes some time to emphasize the point that you couldn't count the number of cowherd boys and calves. how are you going to do that? First of all, when you say you can't count the number of calves that went with the cowherd boys, you're just referring to the calves that went with them. What about the calves that were too young and stayed at home? What about all the bulls and cows who didn't go to the forest? They're also unlimited. So you have to see the whole picture of unlimitedness. Unlimited cowherd boys taking unlimited calves with them. Meanwhile, back home in Vrindavan, there are unlimited other cows. The boys are all happy because Krishna had personally awakened them with his buffalo horn. So you have to get your mind around this point, first of all. The unlimited nature of Krishna's pastimes. After all, what did Krishna do during Rasa Leela? He danced with 1 billion consorts. What man here can do such a thing? You have to work so hard just to beg to dance with one consort. Krishna handles 1 billion. This is Krishna's enjoying capacity. So not only did the unlimited cowherd boys with their unlimited group of calves come, but then Krishna comes out with beyond unlimited calves in his group. So what's going on in Vrindavan? How does this all fit? We'll hear from Prabhupada's purport. In this verse, the words Krishna Vatsaya Asankhyatai are significant. The word Asankhyata means unlimited. Krishna's calves were unlimited. We may speak of hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, billions, trillions, tens of trillions, and so on. But when we go further to speak of numbers impossible for us to count, we are speaking of unlimited numbers. Such unlimited numbers are indicated here by the word asankhyatai. Krishna is unlimited. His potency is unlimited. His cows and calves are unlimited. And his space is unlimited. Therefore, he's described in Bhagavad Gita as Parabrahman. The word Brahman means unlimited, and Krishna is the supreme unlimited. Parabrahman. Therefore, we should not consider the statements of this verse to be mythological. They are factual, but inconceivable. Krishna can accommodate an unlimited number of calves and an unlimited measurement of space. This is neither mythological nor false, but if we study Krishna's potency with our limited knowledge, that potency will never be possible to understand. Atat Sri Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Grayam Indraya. Our senses cannot perceive how he could keep an unlimited number of calves and cows and have unlimited space in which to do so. And Prabhupada quotes a verse from Lagu Bhagavatamrita. Those of you who have pored over Srimad Bhagavatam and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita amply, you're then entitled to read these texts of Goswami literature, which we have very fine translations available. Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami and Sri Lagu Bhagavatamrita by Rupa Goswami. The verse Srila Prabhupada is referring to, discussed by Rupa Goswami in Lagu Bhagavatamrita and expanded upon by Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, tells us that everything about the Lord himself, you would say, well, we know that. Everything about the Lord himself is unlimited. But also everything about the Lord's devotees. Everything about the Lord's pastimes and everything about the holy Dham, the Lord's abode, is also unlimited. So you can't apply material limitations to these four factors: the Lord, the Lord's devotees, the Lord's activities, and the Lord's abode. One day we want to see that when we go to Vrindavan, to Mayapur. One day we want to see what is really going on. Seeing what is really going on begins with appreciating the unlimitedness of the Lord's abode. Therefore, there's no question of how did all these billions of calves and cows and cowherd boys fit into Vrindavan. So either we accept that Krishna is a chincha, inconceivable, or we miss the whole point. Now we're going to hear about the playing of the cowherd boys. You see, at this festival, the children are loving it. They have plenty of grass to run around in, right? They have plenty of amusement sites. Right, Madhava? Plenty of places to play, right? Arjuna, is Arjuna here? He's playing. Kids love to play. Of course, adults also like to play. Adults have adult toys. It's very purifying and very enlivening to hear about the enjoyment of Krishna and the cowherd boys. We've discussed how these boys were decorated by their mothers and how they further decorated themselves with forest ornamentation, natural ornamentation, leaves and peacock feathers and minerals and berries. Now what did they do? Lunch bag stealing. All the cowherd boys used to steal one another's lunch bags. When a boy came to understand that his bag had been taken away, the other boys would throw it farther away to a more distant place, and those standing there would throw it still farther. When the proprietor of the bag became disappointed, the other boys would laugh. The proprietor would cry, and then the bag would be returned. So you see, at this festival, the young children are loving to play. Where does that come from? It has to be there in the Supreme Absolute Truth. Janmadiya Sata. Srila Prabhupada explains, this same enjoyment is displayed by Krishna and his associates in the spiritual world. But there, the enjoyment is eternal. Whereas here, on the material platform, it is temporary. Bhakti yoga means to transfer yourself to eternal enjoyment. But eternal enjoyment can only be in association with Krishna. We can't do it on our own. We can't be the enjoyer on our own. Actually, we're meant to be enjoyed. The enjoyment of a devotee in serving Krishna is so unlimited that Krishna himself wants to taste what it's like to be a devotee. And that is the mystery of Krishna coming as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The incarnations of Godhead, all of them, would rather be devotees than God. That means they would rather be enjoyed instead of being the enjoyer. And what's our problem? We don't want to be enjoyed. We want to be the prime mover, the enjoyer. So by hearing Krishna's pastimes, we become purified of our hallucinations. First of all, we have to accept that Krishna can come to the material world without being affected by it. And then you're able to understand not only that he comes, but he displays real enjoyment and invites you, come join me. So this lunch bag stealing, maybe we can have an event here for the kids. This lunch bag stealing is very important. The Acharyas add further details, by the way, that not only would one boy take the lunch bag and throw it to another boy, and that boy would throw it still further away, and the original owner would be crying, and everyone would laugh at him. But sometimes they would steal the lunch bag and then put it at the base of a tree that was surrounded by thorns. Not simply thorns, but also fiery ants. Ants that would, if they bite you, it really stings. And then the poor owner of the bag had to negotiate all this. So this is their pure Ananda. This is their pure bliss. Another detail, for those of you who are more familiar with this pastime, is that Jiva Goswami says, well, it's not that they threw their lunch in of itself here and there. They didn't want to disrespect the lunch. But they threw the bag. Somehow they separated the lunch from the bag, and they threw the bag. And also other implements. They threw flutes and sticks and bugles, stealing them and throwing them, making the owner cry. It's wonderful hearing about Krishna's enjoyment. And when we hear about our pathetic attempts to enjoy in this world, to make this world a secure place, where is the Ananda in that? Oh, there's so much anxiety involved, so much hard work, so much illusion. And as I often point out, as soon as you want to materially enjoy, what has to happen? You have to control. You cannot materially enjoy, at least attempt to materially enjoy, without having to control, even in the slightest way. Even just by moving your eyebrows or varying the tone of your voice. Wouldn't you really like to do this? That's control. Even by your dressing yourself, building your muscles, or changing your hairstyle. That's all about control. Just think of what you have to go through in order to try to fulfill yourself independently of Krishna. It's hard work. It's full of anxiety, disappointment, and so many false hopes. Now we're going to be happy. Doesn't work. You only get the false hope that it'll work out. And this is why you jump from one thing to another. Because one thing will not satisfy you. In Krishna Leela, variety is also the mother of enjoyment. That's why demons, arranged by the pastime energy, the Leela Shakti, this is why demons interrupt Krishna's pastimes, in case you wonder. Why does that happen? It's because the cowherd boys and Krishna are so locked into unlimited enjoyment. Whatever they're doing, the enjoyment is just increasing exponentially. So why should they stop doing it? But it's time for lunch. So the pastime energy, the Leela Shakti, sends a demon. Okay, you need to be killed, and this is a great time for you to be killed, because then the cowherd boys and Krishna will stop enjoying in one way, and they'll finally take their lunch. When we change from one so-called enjoyment activity to another, it's because the first thing is worn out. It's become stale. So we jump to another thing. Psychological researchers who study happiness, they claim to study happiness. They say the only solution to the problem of chewing the chewed, as we know it, there's only one solution, and that is you have to juggle as many different pleasure sources in your life as possible. Because just doing one thing won't work out. You'll start out high on a certain level and then plummet. And there's nothing you can do about the drop, the plummeting. There's nothing you can do except jump to something else and then jump to something else and something else. This is not how Krishna Lila works. And indeed, there's no work in Krishna Lila. Everything is unlimitedly enjoyable. So it's not that the cowherd boys and Krishna get tired of playing in one way. No, they're just locked into the unlimited depths of enjoying in a certain way. But then circumstances change as arranged by the Leela Shakti, so they can enjoy it another way, even though everything they do is unlimited enjoyment. We can't conceive of that, can we? You might think, well, they must get tired of lunch bag stealing. No. They can go on for all eternity stealing lunch bags. So this is amazing how even though every individual thing they do is unlimitedly enjoyable, they still have variety. All this is beyond the range of our sense perception. So now some verses describing how they would enjoy. Krishna would sometimes want to go and see a particular scenic spot of the forest, and he would just take a few cowherd boys with him. The other cowherd boys couldn't tolerate the separation. They feel love and separation from Krishna just when Krishna walks behind a tree. For that split second that they don't see Krishna because he's walked behind a tree. And before he emerges from behind the tree, just 1 second, the cowherd boys are plunged in separation. Now, who do you love that much that if they walk behind a tree, oh! As much as you adore your dear spouse, as much as you adore your dear children, really, they walk behind a tree and you're plunged into the ocean of separation. That's what it's like in Krishna Lila. So the cowherd boys would use this opportunity of Krishna going up ahead to see some particular sightseeing spot. Yes, Krishna does sightseeing. So as he's up ahead, the cowherd boys would compete. I'll run up and touch Krishna first. No, I will. By touching Krishna first, they mean they run up and embrace him. And then fall back. And then another one runs up and embraces Krishna and falls back. And this way they're competing. Who can first touch Krishna? Who can first embrace Krishna? What a life. So what about the varieties of enjoyment that the cowherd boys did in their sports? No kid here can compete. Nothing you did as a child could compete with the cowherd boys and Krishna in terms of their sports, their fun activities. Let's hear them. Some boys blew their flutes. Other boys blew bugles. Some imitated the buzzing of the bumblebees. Bzzz. Others imitated the sound of cuckoos. Anyone know how a cuckoo sounds? Very good. Some boys imitated flying birds. How do they do that? By running after the bird's shadow. What fun. I didn't even know that birds make a shadow. But in the Vrindavan forest, when the birds are flying, they cast a shadow, and the cowherd boys run after the shadow on the ground. Some imitated the beautiful movements of swans. Others sat down with ducks, sitting quietly next to ducks. If you don't sit quietly next to a duck, it will go away. So they knew the art of how to sit next to a duck and be quiet. Others imitated the dancing of peacocks. Some boys attracted young monkeys in the trees and jumped into the trees imitating the monkeys. With the monkeys, the boys would jump from one branch to another. What about frogs? Some boys would jump into the river and sit next to frogs and imitate the frogs. When the boys would see their own reflection on the water, they would make jokes at their own reflection. And what about when they found a well? They would lean over the edge of the well and make a sound, and then when the echo would come back, they would curse the echo. You will die! They were cursing the echo of their own voice. So Shukadeva Goswami uses his opportunity to make a profound point. A very famous verse quoted often in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Itam satam brahma sukhanubhuja dasyam gatanam paradaivatena mayashritanam naradarakena sakam vidrahu krita punya punjaha. He's describing three types of persons who are ineligible to sport with Krishna, even though they're great. He's talking about the Gyanis. He's talking about those who worship the Supreme Lord with awe and reverence. And he's talking about ordinary persons, no matter how great they are. They can't have what the cowherd boyfriends of Krishna have. First of all, itam satam brahma sukhanubhuja. If you view Krishna as the Brahman effulgence, you'll never be able to sport with him. If you view Krishna as the worshipable Lord, for whom you should have an attitude of veneration and respect, you can't sport with him, even though you're a bhakta, even though you're das. You can't sport with Krishna like these boys are doing, with that awe and reverence attitude. And what to speak of someone who thinks Krishna's an ordinary child? They're totally ineligible to play with Krishna. So Shukadeva Goswami is wondering, how many pious activities did these cowherd boys accumulate in order to have what they are doing? How is it possible? Now, bear in mind, pious activities will not give you the intimate association of Krishna. Pious activities are material. But it's just Shukadeva Goswami's way of exclamation. It's like you're saying, well, how many trillions of dollars would it take for me to be happy in the material world? So how many pious activities? That's the currency in a real human society. The currency is pious activities, punya. So what Shukadeva Goswami is meaning at his deepest level is, What and how many activities for pleasing Krishna did these boys do in their previous lifetime? But because, again, you have to use the unit of measurement that's common in your society at the time. So it wasn't dollars then. You might have caught yourself exclaiming, well, how many dollars does it take to get that? Well, that kind of currency is not, in a real human society, is not the dominant one. So this is why Shukadeva Goswami is exclaiming, how many pious activities! But Krishna is beyond punya, beyond pious activities. In commenting on this verse, Srila Prabhupada points out that Srimad Bhagavatam is the easiest way to directly experience Krishna. We should always remember that. And then we can start to get a glimpse of Krishna's personal enjoyment with the cowherd boys. Making faces like monkeys, catching the tails of baby monkeys. Laughing at seeing their own shadows. And we can all do this. Laughing in a very special way amongst themselves. How do they do that? Ready? Throwing their arms up in the air and laughing. Everyone, throw your arms up. So that is Vrindavan forest laughing. So it's surprising to us that even those who have love of Krishna, but that love is affected by awe and reverence, they can't sport with Krishna. We should know about the different levels of love of Krishna because we want to aspire for spontaneous love of Krishna. That's what Lord Chaitanya came to give. He didn't come to give belief in God or veneration of God. He came to give spontaneous, pure love for Krishna, especially in the more confidential relationships. He didn't come to bring theism or religiosity. You know the Vedic injunction, Prema Pumarto Mahan. Love of Krishna is the fifth goal of life, beyond dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Beyond religiosity, economic development, legitimate sense gratification, and then liberation. Beyond all that is spontaneous love of Krishna. In the worst possible age, Lord Chaitanya is giving away the most exalted, rare gift. Came in the form of a huge serpent. Now, why did Aghasura do that? Do you know his motivation? It was twofold. Number one, he couldn't tolerate the cowherd boys' enjoyment with Krishna. That enjoyment made him suffer. Can you believe that? This is envy in a Maha way. He couldn't tolerate the transcendental pleasure of the cowherd boys with Krishna. Furthermore, he wanted revenge. He was sent by Kamsa. Aghasura is from a very special family. Who is his sister? His sister is Baki, Putana. Who's his brother? Baka, the duck demon. So another name for Aghasura is Bucky Buckanuja. Just like there's Ramanuja, so there's Bucky Buckanuja, the younger brother of Putana and the younger brother of Bakasura. Very deadly family. How Krishna's pastimes will just go on and on doing one particular thing because there's no material limitation. To provoke variety, though, because everything is unlimitedly enjoyable, the Leela Shakti, the pastime energy, arranges to change the scene without Krishna having to worry about it. Krishna doesn't have to consider, well, I've been doing this, and even though what I'm doing now is unlimitedly blissful, I've got to arrange things to switch to something else. No, his pastime energy does all that. So Aghasura is thinking, this Krishna has killed my brother and sister. I shall kill him along with all his cowherd boys. And what was his strategic thinking? By killing all the cowherd boys, Vrindavan will be finished because parents can't tolerate atrocities and death happening to their children. In this way, that's the end of Vrindavan. Just by my killing the children, the whole town is finished. What to speak of Krishna being finished. You know how Aghasura looked. 8 miles long. How many kilometers long is that? Huh? 15 kilometers long. The top of his mouth reaching the sky, the bottom of his mouth on the ground. And from his stomach comes a horrible smell because he's full of dead animals that he's already eaten. And now he wants to eat the cowherd boys and Krishna. So what was the cowherd boys' response? There was a debate. Look at this. Very interesting. This is a new pastime place in Vrindavan. They looked at it like a ride at an amusement park. But other cowherd boys said, wait a minute, this could be very dangerous. So there was a debate amongst them. Nah, it's just something made of clay that's there to be a fun place for us. Just like at this retreat center, they have various places for children to go and have fun. So that's what some cowherd boys thought that. Others were a little afraid. Oh no. So they had a discussion amongst themselves. What was the conclusion? Well, look, even if it is danger, Krishna will save us. So even if there is danger, let's enjoy the pastime of Krishna rescuing us. So from all points of view, we should just march into the mouth of Aghasura. It all adds up. Now Krishna is watching all this. He doesn't want them to do that. Now you might say, we thought Krishna had that ability of satya sankalpa. Whatever he wills happens. But he doesn't want the cowherd boys marching into Aghasura's mouth. But the cowherd boys, the acharyas explain, want to enjoy Krishna saving them if there happens to be danger. So here you see the desire of the devotee trumps the desire of Krishna. It's not that Krishna's plans were frustrated. No, But he comes under the control of his devotees voluntarily. Oh, okay, they want to experience that. Okay. So the cowherd boys march into Aghasura's mouth. They're actually entering his stomach. And Krishna is thinking. It seems like a puzzle for Krishna. How am I going to save the cowherd boys and kill Aghasura at the same time when these boys are in the mouth, in the belly of Aghasura? This is a challenge for Krishna, apparently. So you might say, is there something Krishna can't do? He has to figure it out? He's just enjoying solving a puzzle. He is full of all types of pleasure, even the pleasure of being momentarily not knowing what to do. You can't limit Krishna. Oh, he knows everything, therefore he can't act in this way. He can't act puzzled. No, he relishes everything. Even though he knows everything, he likes a puzzling situation. Oh, what am I going to do about this? It's inconceivable, isn't it? You say either he knows or he doesn't know. But Krishna can know and at the same time be puzzled for the sake of his own pleasure. So Krishna is waiting outside, watching, and Aghasura is waiting with the cowherd boys inside. So they're both playing a waiting game. Because Aghasura won't swallow the cowherd boys completely. They're inside his belly, but he won't. First of all, the acharyas point out, he realized, I can't digest these guys. But the main reason he's waiting is he wants Krishna to come into his mouth. He wants to swallow Krishna. So before he starts swallowing everyone, closing his mouth, Krishna has to enter. And so the Aghasura is waiting. And Krishna's also waiting. What do I do here? How am I going to handle this situation? So you know what happens. Krishna enters with a plan. He expands himself. Oh, just think how happy Kamsa is to see Krishna entering the mouth of Aghasura. How did Kamsa know? He had spies in Vrindavan. The acharyas point that out. Somehow or other, the spies were able to instantly relay messages to Kamsa. I don't know what mystic powers they were using. So there was great rejoicing. Krishna has finally entered the mouth. He's finished. And then you know what happened. Krishna expanded himself and choked Aghasura to death. And while Aghasura is dying, he's in a state of total disarray. He's wondering, who am I? What is my situation? What is happening here? He's showing you what it's like to materially die. It's not a peaceful event that you just fall asleep, you die in your sleep. It is not like that. You're in a state of total disorientation, lacking knowledge of self-realization. So Aghasura is like that. What is this? Who am I? What is happening? And then he's dead. But because Krishna is inside him, he achieves liberation. Not simply liberation into the Brahman effulgence, but he achieves one of the 4 Vaikuntha liberations. Because Krishna spent so much time inside his body, even after he was dead. All this is going on while Krishna is enjoying in the forest with the cowherd boys. And later, indeed, Aghasura's body would become an amusement park site. Just the skin, this huge 14-kilometer long snake skin would become a spot for the cowherd boys' enjoyment. So this is life with Krishna, eternal life in which everything is a source of pleasure. Whether there's bewilderment, what to do, the cowherd boys have swallowed, Agasura has swallowed the cowherd boys. What to do with the 14-kilometer long carcass of a dead snake. Everything becomes Ananda. And just think, here we are working so hard for just a tiny bit. When I say working so hard, I don't simply mean employment. I mean struggling to get a tiny, insignificant speck of material enjoyment. Something that it's there, but it's so microscopic, it's not even worth considering. But we're proud, we're haughty, we'll say, but there is something there. But the Shastra is telling us it's so insignificant. Better to just say it doesn't exist rather than take pride. I got something. I got a speck. I got a speck. He would say, how foolish. What's the smallest coin now you can have in New Zealand? 5 or 10? Suppose one of your children comes running up. Let's say one of Krishnendu's children comes running up. Peter, Dad, I've got this coin. 10 cents. Krishnendu would have to admit, you do have a coin, but it is so insignificant. Even if you throw it away, there's no loss. So that is what material enjoyment is like. And we have to train ourselves to see that reality. We have to make lifestyle adjustments, acquire knowledge, and engage in selfless devotional service to be able to see what's really going on. To see how insignificant material happiness is. It exists. Okay, the Swami admitted it exists. Okay. But a 10-cent coin exists. What are you going to do about that? Are you going to brag? You got a 10-cent coin? Is Krishnendu going to broadcast throughout the whole retreat site, my child found a 10-cent coin? I mean, you'd think he's mad. Well, this is how desperate we are, and this is how egotistical we are. By hearing about Krishna from Srimad Bhagavatam, this madness becomes dissipated like the fog if we daily hear. We all need that experience of directly seeing Krishna through Srimad Bhagavatam and having the fog of our material illusions dispelled. But as I said yesterday, we have this syndrome that we think, it was dispelled last week, the fog, so isn't that enough for quite some time? No, daily we need to do activities for fog dispelling because we're in the material atmosphere, in the material body. So hopefully this retreat will be incentive for all of us to go deeper in our bhakti and we can learn how to be satisfied simply by hearing about Krishna and serving Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.